Welcome to another Freedom Stories podcast, and as you can tell, we are in person today. So if you're listening, go ahead and click on the link in the show notes if you want to watch us, or just keep listening. Either way, it's up to you. But today, we got a pretty extraordinary guy with us, and Eladio, thanks for coming on the show with us today.
You're welcome. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a little quick tidbit about Eladio, and I'll let him jump in and share. This guy and I met about a year ago, this time actually a year ago, through a really close friend, Rob Harbor.
Right.
Connected us and said, Rob, for years, gotta meet Eladio. Finally got some time, shot Eladio an email, said, Eladio, Rob and I have been talking about you for a lot of years. Love to meet you, love to connect and see what I could do to help the group of people that you get to coach and motivate and see what we can do to help. That led into you coming to visit us here, doing your due diligence to make sure that you talk to the right guy and talk to the right people, and made sure that you had the right people on the bus for your team. That led to you guys coming to your runners group coming here.
Right.
And when you were here, I saw some pretty cool things happen. It was pretty special. And that's why ultimately we wanted to have you here, just to hear your story and let you share with as many people as we can influence through you as possible. So thanks for being here.
I'm flattered. Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about what you do. I know you're a leader, a motivator, and a coach of lots and lots and lots of people. What does it actually look like?
Well, the main thing I do is on Saturdays, I organize group long runs for about 150 people. On Tuesday nights, I organize speed and hill workouts for about 30 people. On Wednesday nights, I lead a free community group run down at downtown Kansas City. Purpose is to explore the city and tour the city through your running shoes.
Sure.
So those are the three main things I do. And then in addition to the organizing of all these running groups, workouts, I also do coordinate the pacers for about 40 races in the area, Midwest area. Pacers are half marathon pacers from like 3 hours to 6 hours in a marathon, and 1.5 hours to 3 hours in a half marathon. So coaches on the course, I train them, and then they go out there and help set up people for more positive race experiences. And then in the last couple of years, I've added on a race director to my title. My girlfriend, Danya, and I, we've become the race directors for the Ward Parkway 4 on the 4th, July 4th. And then Sunday before Thanksgiving, we do the Gobbler Grind Marathon, half marathon.
What does race director mean? We kind of shared a little bit of that just a minute ago, but that blew my mind. What is entailed with that?
So basically, anyone can sign up for a race. So they have an entry, they sign up for it, and in exchange for their entry fee, they get a race shirt. If they finish the race, they get a medal. If they finish fast enough, they get an age group medal, and then lots of food after the race. And it's a course with a bunch of people that line up all at the same time. So it's a fantastic way of enjoying fitness in a community setting. And so we do a lot of work for one day out of the year.
Yeah, you kind of alluded to it being kind of like a wedding.
Yes, a lot of planning involved.
A lot of planning from the race director side to get the event off.
Correct.
Including volunteers.
Lots of volunteers needed for it to happen. So we're relying. It takes a village to put on a race.
Yeah. So if you're in the Kansas City area and you want to volunteer, Eladio is your guy. They need volunteers for those races.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So leading volunteers. How many volunteers about per race would you say in those 3 different races you just named?
At least 50. At least minimum.
And where do you draw those people from?
I start with my group.
Okay.
But fortunately,
what if they're running?
I know. Yeah, most of them are participating in the race. But it's a combination of the group and then people that, when we bought the race, there have been people that's their tradition is to help out at the race. So combination of the community at large and the Runner's Edge group.
Yeah, so you just lead a lot of people. 50 people at each race, 150 on each Saturday.
Yes.
It's a lot of coordination that goes into it.
Yes.
And from your emails that I've received back and forth, I can tell you're a very organized individual.
Thank you.
You've got your ducks in a row. And in order to have that many people show up on a Saturday at 6 a.m., you've got to have that. So that's pretty impressive. But more so than just organization, tell me a little bit more of how you motivate each runner when they come in. Because again, I've witnessed the runners that have come to these events, these Saturday morning events, and like you said, you've got the hour halves and the 3 hour halves.
Yes.
And that's kind of runner's lingo for 1 hour to complete 13 miles, 13.1 miles, and or 3 hours to complete 13.1 running miles. That is a large difference between runners. How in the world?
I think number one is I've been a runner since I can remember. Actually, I wanted to be a sprinter like everybody when we were in track. So my quick root story is 5th and 6th grade, I was attempting to be a sprinter. I wasn't a good sprinter, but I wanted to be. In 7th grade, our coach couldn't get anyone to do the quarter mile. And so, because we all wanted to do the 100 or the 200. And he said, okay, I want to see who the toughest runner is on our team. And we all knew him as a crazy marathon coach.
Yeah.
He ran lots of miles, and we thought that was nuts. So he goes, I'm going to have everyone run with me for 2 miles at my pace. And whoever can stay with me is deemed the tough enough runner. And so he starts off, and people started off way too fast, and then they died. And then pretty soon it's me and another kid. And really close to the finish, the kid just starts walking. I'm the only one that makes it for 2 miles. We ended up averaging an 8-minute pace. And I was like, all right, what's the prize? I'm the toughest. You're the quarter mile.
Oh, no.
So I learned, okay, number one is if you want somebody to do what you want them to do, you're going to have to trick them a little bit. But then once they're too far, point of no return, they'll do it. And he planted the seed of distance running, high school cross country. After high school, I could have gone to a small school to run, but I chose road racing. And anyway, all of that immersion into the running community. I'm 55, so my first road race was 1985, so almost 40 years ago, which means I can relate to the running community at large. And when I first started coaching, I was not a good coach for the slower runners, but they've helped me understand them. And so 26 years ago when I started doing Runner's Edge, I learned, okay, there's fast runners, there's average runners, and there's slow runners, and I got to learn how to relate to all of them. So what I did is early on and continue as I started running at the paces that they were running. So average paces and half marathons, slow paces. I've even finished last for a race or two, the very last runner, just to see what it feels like. And I've done ultra runs, I've done track, I've done whatever my clients are doing. I try to understand, walk a mile in their shoes. And so it's led me to trail running, all sorts of running you could think about. I've done it, I've experimented with it. And then I go back and I go, I understand you now. So I think it's a process of figuring out why they do what they do firsthand and then saying, okay, I get it now. Yeah. But it's way different than reading about it or listening to them versus doing what they do. So over time, I've expanded my repertoire of who I can relate to. And now I do feel like I'm one of those rare people. Most people, they can only relate to their experiences. So a back of the packer can't even understand that the stuff that a front of the packer goes through. But me coaching all the pacers, because the pacers give me lots of feedback, me coaching all these runners and me trying all these things, I'm in a very, very rare position to understand the various aspects of the running community.
Yeah, and real quick, if you're watching or listening in, a pacer is an individual who runs the race at a specific pace so that the masses who want to achieve that goal can follow them through the finish line and get that goal. So that's what a pacer is. You had alluded to the fact that you help people through their experiences with running because you have experienced the front of the pack and the back of the pack. But when I watch you with all those runners, that one specific time that you were in here motivating them to get out and go, and they were really grumbling because it was a tough course out here.
Yes.
Pretty hilly, pretty hot, and they were all quite frustrated with it.
Yeah.
You did more than just give them that experience of front of pack, back of the pack. They look to you in a different light.
Okay.
Why is that? Why do you think that is? What drives that?
A lot of them have been with me for a long time.
So history, that's what it is?
They know. I try. My goal is to get to know them beyond just the running times, and I think maybe because they treat me like an uncle or we're more like family versus coach. And the term coach, I'm not a big fan of. I understand it and I respect it, but it can be misused. More of an encourager, organizer, coordinator, fellow sufferer. Maybe a servant leader is better because I understand where they're coming from. Maybe because they know I understand where they're coming from. I understand that they don't like hills. I understand they don't like heat, and I understand they don't like humidity, and yet we're going to do it. So I acknowledge their fears and frustrations and say, and that's why we're going to do it, because of your fears and your frustrations. Because when you're done, you're gonna feel like you achieved something that most people wouldn't even have tried in the first place. And you're going to be glad that you did it more than you will be frustrated about why you did it. You'll be stronger from the experience.
So I won't use coach. That's good. I didn't.
No. Coach is fine. That's what most people call me, but you can use it. Coach it could be all of the above. So coach is summary for, yes, everything.
When did you know this is what you wanted to do?
Well, for many years, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a aimless wanderer. I did everything from, I went to school at various points. I even went to Seattle because I thought I was going to get a nutrition and master's nutrition degree. So nutritionist, teacher, high school science teacher. And then I was a recruiter for the University of Kansas. So for the first 29 years of my life, I was trying to figure out what I wanted. And I felt like I was a square peg trying to go into all these holes, circles, and it wasn't a good fit. Now, I would be good at what I did, but I didn't have the passion, the excitement. I didn't look forward. I didn't feel like this is my purpose. And fortunately, after teaching only 2 years, I saw a Help Wanted sign at the then Gary Gribble's running sports store. It's now called Fleet Feet, but the local running store, they had a Help Wanted sign. And I walked in very sheepish because I thought you had to be like really fast. And I was like fast, but I wasn't elite fast. So I go, I saw your Help Wanted sign. I used to look for help. And then one thing led to another. I started working there. And I thought, I'll just work there during the summer because it was right after the school year ended. So I started in June, and 2 months into the job, the owner of the store, Gary Gribble, comes up to me and says, I've been watching you and I think you'd be really good at this. Would you like to train people to run marathons, half marathons? And when he said that, back then I had run 6 marathons and maybe a dozen half marathons. I had been running for 10 years. Well, a little bit longer when you think high school, but road racing for 10 years. So I goes, do you think anybody's going to listen to me? He goes, let's give it a shot. And he told me later, you're my 4th choice. The other 3 choices, they didn't pan out. So I didn't know that. I'm glad he saved that for later. So it was because of Gary Gribble who saw something in me. And I was thinking, I didn't know if I would like it or not. Because there's no magical thing. But the very first run, it was disastrous. The first run, I thought people knew how to read maps. They don't. So everybody was lost, and I'm running all over the place. And so my learning curve was like this. So the first year was rough. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. But then it grew on me, and then I got better at it. And then we started developing, regulars. And then I started seeing how people who usually the people I attracted, they were scared of sports. They were the last kid picked, or they were average. I got very few standout athletes. I got people who just said, I'm wanting to lose weight. I'm wanting to reclaim some kind of life. I don't know who this person is. But a lot of them have amazing underdog stories. And I was drawn to that. I'm like, because I feel like I'm an underdog. I was a horrible at football, basketball, baseball. I sucked at everything else. So at first it was, well, at least try running. You can at least put one foot in front of the other. And I figured out I was okay at it. Mm-hmm. Probably better than okay, but not like, I wasn't this, but I wasn't that either. I was this with all the other sports, and I was closer to that with running. And they had the same story as I did. And so thanks to Gary asking if I would do this, And thanks to the group for giving the patience that they needed as I was figuring out how to get them to get ready for the race without getting them injured. I would say probably like 5 years into doing this, I was like, I think I can do this for the rest of my life. So it took about 5 years to get to that point. It's like, I found it. This is my purpose.
Wow. So somebody saw something in you, whether it was out of necessity or if he really did. Do you know that answer actually? Was it out of necessity, really? He said you were the fourth pick, or did he really genuinely see?
It was a mixture of both. Gary and I, he's like an uncle to me. So I did ask him many years later, what did you really think of me? And he says, Eladio, I had no idea you would do this with it. No one saw this.
Yeah.
I thought you would have maybe like 10 to 15 people and you would train those people and you'd still work at the store full time. But as the group grew and you started asking for more time off because you needed to focus on this bigger and bigger organization that you needed to spend time on, that was surprising to me. So yes, you were the fourth pick, but yes, I saw that you were a really good person for this type of a role. But no, I had no idea you would take it this far.
Sure.
So this is the fun part is I feel like, okay, God maybe used Gary to help me help the world. And as you know, especially with the pandemic, I mean, health was always important, but it was kind of pushed on the back burner. And then the pandemic, in my mind, the pandemic clearly separated the people that have taken care of their health, no matter what their age is. I understand immune system goes down with age, but even those people are way better off than people half their age who don't take care of their health. And I get it. There's a million reasons why I got to work, social, economic, unfair. I get it. I'm not putting anyone down, but the point is, the pandemic proved no matter what your situation is, you have to take care of some aspect of your health. If you don't have the physical health, at least the social health, the emotional health, the spiritual health. Health is health. It starts somewhere. And I felt really happy that my runners invested in all aspects of their health. And yes, we were concerned about our loved ones, but very few of my runners were concerned about themselves. Our immune systems were like, bring it, because we had prepared our immune systems. But we felt awful for everybody who wasn't ready. So I feel like now we went from expanding from running and race performance to life performance. This is for your life. And the pandemic proved that. So for the next whatever comes our way, let's figure out a way to work on all aspects of your health. And so it was a great wake-up call, as it was for everybody else. But for our group and for my purpose, it helped me raise the game to the next level, which is life. So I'm more of a life coach who works with people that use running as a means to improve their health.
Did you see a pretty massive influx throughout COVID with your running group?
Well, it hit me because there was a lot of people that still were, the stress got to them. The stress of taking care of their loved one who you know, they don't have the health. So they had to self-isolate, and I totally respected that. So we had 3 groups. We had a group that was fearful of their loved ones, protective, and I can't question that. And they haven't been back because a lot of them have had issues with COVID-related health issues with their loved ones. Then I had people that became, so the 3 Fs, fearful people that were in a funk, and they just stopped working out. The stress got to them, and either they had to homeschool their kids or, you know, I mean, they just took a turn for the worse, and they haven't come back yet. And then there was the 3rd group, which is the people that are fired up. They're like, okay, we got to figure this out here. You can run outside. There's no law that says you can't still go outside. We go outside. We're not inside gyms. No offense to you, but we could go outside. So within 7 weeks of me gathering data on how is this transmitted, I go outside is where it's safe, inside is where it's not. So outside, and then we just had separate start times for each pace group, and then everybody social distance, and then we would run, and then we would get yelled at by a few of the people that are in the community. What are you guys doing out here? And we're like, we're trying to improve our health, and in a safe way. But anyway, all that to say, I think that the whole thing with the pandemic is the greatest wake-up call our society has before us, and it's up to us to do something about it.
Yeah. So you did have an influx and
We have
and
ever
an
since
exit.
then.
It was kind of both.
Yeah. We've been adding people that were like, I need to do something about my health.
Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And just a glimpse over the 25 years, it sounds like you've been doing this, 25, 26 years or so. How many people have you been in touch with the races and the groups?
That's a lot.
Thousands?
Yeah. Yes, easily. Yes. Yeah, it's fun to, whenever I don't do it as much now, but whenever I enter a race as a race participant, or as a regular race participant with a number, I'll hear my name yelled at throughout the race. And there's some funny stories. If I'm trying to catch up on someone and sneak up to them, I can't. Hey, Eladio, keep it going. Because they'll look back and they're like, oh, he's right on me. So I have to go outside of the city to run and be incognito. So unofficial mayor of the running community. And that's fun, running into people that I haven't seen for 20 years. And they're like the first thing, they're like a excited puppy, like, I'm still running. I'm sorry I haven't come to you, but I've been doing other things. And I go, you don't have to apologize. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. So it's no biggie. But yeah, I would say thousands is a good answer. I don't know if I've ever thought about that. But our races themselves, though, we had 1,800 for Gobbler Grind and 800 for Ward Parkway 4 on the 4th. And then, I churned through probably 100 regulars. And then the other 50 or so are different people every year for 25 years. So yeah, I guess it adds up to a lot. And then the pacers. To me, the biggest influence is coordinating the pacers for all of these races, big and small. And that would easily put the numbers into the tens of thousands.
How many pacers in a typical race are there?
There's usually about 30 to 35.
So that's kind of your core team.
Yeah, well, I have a pool of 700 plus pacers, and in a given season, so like this past spring, we had 135 pacers that paced these different races. So yes, these pacers will pace about 3 to 4 races each.
Goodness gracious.
Yes.
That's a lot of people.
A lot of coordinating, yes.
And you just did that because Gary Gribbles looked at you and said, hey,
yes.
Let's get rolling.
As you know, it takes a village to raise each of us up, and all of us have that story of that person who said the right thing at the right time, not knowing that they would make that big of an impact, but they did.
Yeah, and you've done that how many times now over with other people?
Oh, this is my duty to pay it forward. Yeah, it's fun. I get to regularly help people understand that they have more in them than they think they do.
Yeah.
And that's a special thing.
What's the first story that comes to your mind when you think about that? Is there one that you want to share? Like a first story?
From helping somebody else?
Yeah, tell us a story of somebody that just comes to mind where you thought, oh man, they are done. They're never coming back after today.
Oh, that story. Okay.
Or no, or whatever.
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's cute stories. One story was early on, a guy named Jim Malin. He had followed the heart rate monitor. Coach Benson, Roy Benson, had a heart rate monitor, and maybe he didn't follow it correctly. Anyway, he hadn't gotten close to what he wanted to do. He wanted to break 4 hours, and he had gotten to a 4.5 hour marathon. So he joined us, and he went from 4.5 to 3.5 hours. A full hour, that's 2 minutes a mile. That's huge. I didn't expect that. Honestly, when he did that, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't put any limits on you, because he said sub 4. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll get you in shape for 350 something. I had no clue you would do 330 something. That's very hard to do. Anyway, what was cute about that, this is in 1998. I get a phone call. This is before cell phones. Enough of us had cell phones. A lot of us still use landlines. So he goes to payphone, those rest areas on the highway. So he's coming back from Chicago. So he stops off at a rest area, and he says, Eladio, I just qualified for the Boston Marathon. So I'm like, that's awesome. Congratulations. Way to go. And then about 2 hours later, same exact thing. He calls again. I can't believe I just qualified for the Boston. He calls me 3 times, and he's in disbelief of his own limits. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a cool story to share, because at the third time, I go, okay, let's be honest here. I had no idea you could do this either. Yeah. So I get why you're calling, because you hit a grand slam and it's out of the park. It's like it's out of the stadium. So good for you.
Yeah.
This is exciting, and it helped me understand that whereas I'm excited and happy when I'm able to do something for myself, it's a whole different level when you can help someone do it for themselves.
Yeah.
And the best expression of that joy when somebody achieves a goal was at the Oklahoma City Marathon in 2009. A gal named Kim Omis, she qualified for Boston, but if you didn't know that she had run 26.2 miles, you would have thought she was on The Price is Right and had got the new car. A new car. So she's crosses the line, and she's like jumping up for joy, giddy. She's kissing, hugging everybody, all the volunteers. She's the most excited. She just ran 26.2 miles. That was the most pleasurable victory dance I've ever seen in my life. She was that much, she worked her butt off. She shaved off some extra weight. She worked did all the hard work, and that was her goal. She told everybody that was her goal. And as you know, in the world of sports, there's no guarantees, none. Riders want to make it sound like, when somebody guarantees, there's a reason why most athletes don't guarantee anything, because you don't know what's going to happen. And the nice thing about a marathon is a marathon doesn't care how rich you are, how nice you are, how spiritual you are. It just says, you owe me. You got to respect your limits, and you got to respect the distance. You got to respect the weather. You got to respect your competitors. You got to respect. And then maybe you might achieve your goal, maybe. So she does all that. And so she's expressing that pure joy that there's a difference between winning because you guessed on a game show, winning because you guessed on the lottery, and earned victory is the best victory of all. And earned victory is by far way better than lucky victory. Earned. She earned it. She had every right to be that excited. It's awesome to see.
Yeah. Do you think that's why a lot of people are stuck in a rut right now, is because they're looking to get something rather than earn it?
Yes. I think the social media thing is powerful in many good ways. It's all of the above. Anything that has been humanly constructed by its own nature has good, average, and not so good things. And social media and movies, and I think the way people get their experience through others in a more readily manner throughout the world. Like you and I, when we grew up, most people that grew up before the internet, we were innocent. We just saw what we saw around us. So I grew up in Kansas City, and in the city, and in my neighborhood, we was maybe 1/3 Mexican, 1/3 black, 1/3 white. So it was very mixed. And of course, everybody kind of hung out with their tribes, but there was a lot of intermingling. And so my grandparents had come from Mexico, and they worked their butts off, and my parents worked their butts off. And so what I saw is, you got to work your butt off to get anywhere. That's what I saw. And I didn't see any of the flashiness that my kids grew up with. And but I know that they watch me, and so they see you got to work. And it's been my proudest things is, like, a lot of people have stickers on the back of their cars saying, my kid is an honor roll student, and that's part of the good thing. But I would also say, and they have a full-time, they work a lot of hours. They work, and they don't have any allowance. They get all their money from their work. So they go to school full-time, and they work, and they pay for everything. And so that's the way my kids are brought up. And I go, you can go to social media and be entertained, and that's okay. It's a reward. Earned rest is a good thing too. Earned rest. But unearned rest, no. You gotta earn it. So yeah, I like the word earned versus unearned. And I feel like there's a lot of people that feel entitled, and I've never felt entitled. So what? I'm Mexican. So what? I don't care if I have to outwork a white guy or a black guy. I don't look that way. I just do the best I can, and it's up to that person to do what they're gonna do with me. But I don't get into I don't deserve anything. I'm happy that God gave me the opportunity to be on this earth. And if I'm allowed to achieve some success through my hard work, that's gravy. But I know as long as I work hard, I'm better off than not doing anything about it. And I do feel a lot of people are either stuck because of mental issues, and that's a very real thing. It's very physical, very real. Or they're stuck because they haven't had good teachers the way we were raised. I think if you're raised in a group of hard workers, you're going to work hard. If you're raised in a group of self-entitled people, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. There's a lot of not so good trees nowadays. And the media, the influence of social media is really, they need to have way more stories of, you got to work to get whatever you want, and less, life's all great, you don't have to work for it. Yeah, but that's always been there. It's just way more ubiquitous now than it was when we were there. We just turned on, we had 3 channels to look at, and then you'd go to the movie and you'd see a few movies, and that was clearly an escape from reality, and that's all it was. Whereas now the lines are blurred between reality and entertainment, and that's unfortunate. But on Saturday mornings, you're going to show up and you're going to have to move your own body to get around, and no one's going to pick you up unless you need medical assistance. And so far, it's very, very rare when that has happened. I have had to pick up a few people. But I have no problem doing that. If it's a physical thing, call me. I will go pick you up. But if it's a mental thing, figure it out. And you'll be glad you did.
And is that kind of the motivation that you'd have? Because a lot of people that tune in to this show, honestly, are looking for something. They're looking for a way out, almost as if they're looking for a ladder. They've gotten themselves into a rut, as we called it, or a hole, or, health-wise, they're down and out, and they need help. They're looking for someone, and they haven't had that situation or that circumstance or that someone to come in to pull them out.
A good message for people, and I'm going to share my story because I think it helps people understand, well, he does understand to some extent what maybe they might be going through. All of us are going to fall. All of us are going to fail a lot of times, not just a few times. There will be some major failures along the way. So for me, my first big test was when I was 26, and I was on a roll. I was like running really well, and I was going to finish my last semester to get my teaching certification. Everything was, you know how that goes. All your ducks in a row. It's more of a formality. I'm about to do the Chicago Marathon in October of 1994. Run a fast enough time to qualify for the Boston Marathon. The Boston Marathon is the only race in the world where you have to run a qualified time. And back then I needed to run a 3-hour, 10-minute, and I had run low threes, so I was going to do it. Usually if you get to Boston, you're in the top 10% of your age group of all the marathoners that are your age. So you're like the varsity runners of the marathon world. So I was everything was going great. I'm working at this a summer job at KU. It was a facilitator of these games where people try to do team building exercises outside. So like they got to work together to scale a 14-foot wall, stuff like that. Well, on that 14-foot wall, there was a member of the sorority who was about to fall. So I didn't want that to happen. So I reached over the wall and yanked her up. And I found out later that I tore 3/4 of my sacroiliac joint. I just felt a sharp pain. I didn't know what it was. And this was 2 months before Chicago. And so I could barely move. So I went to the doctor. Forget about this part. You're good. It's emotional to me because I went to KU Watkins Center, and I had a sports med doctor. He was doing his examination, the test, x-rays, and checking you out. He goes, well, Chicago's not going to happen. I said, I got that part. I said, so when can I train again? Because I'm like, okay, I understand. I gotta heal up. He goes, you've incurred a bad enough tear that unless you surgically repair it, your marathon days are over. Now, I don't know why he said that to me, but it freaked me out. And I didn't have the money, and I wasn't gonna ask my parents. So I said, okay, what are you gonna do about that? And so that doctor was right for 10 months. So I kept trying to make a comeback, and it felt like I didn't even get better at all. Like I'd take a month off. During the meantime, I could bike, I could swim, so I did other things. But anytime I started running, sharp pain would return right away, like it hadn't gotten better at all. And so I realized at that point, so Boston, to qualify for the 96 Boston, you have until December 31st of 1995 to qualify. So I'm running out of time. So I decided to, fortunately, my faith has always been a big part, even as I was stubborn about it when I was more in college. I thought I knew more than my parents and my grandparents. But my grandma, she prayed the rosary an hour every day. And my parents were routinely, church was a big part of our life. And I decided, I haven't really turned to God for any of this. So I'm going to turn to God because physically, I got no answers. The doctors are right. I can't run. I could barely take 2 steps and boom, sharp pain, can't run. So we're talking June of 1995, and I haven't run for 10 months, and I'm still thinking, if I can just start training, I can get in shape for a fall marathon. I'm no longer thinking, oh, I'm Mr. Tough Guy, I'm Mr. Fast Guy. I'm thinking, I want one shot. I prayed. I know it sounds so not a big deal to anyone else, but it was the biggest deal for me. So, I had studied abroad in Mexico at the time. I was in Guadalajara, Mexico. I was escaping my parents because my dad had back problems for years. And he was very much against me trying to run again because he goes, you don't want back problems because once you get them, you have them for the rest of your life. So I didn't get any support from my family. I was on my own. I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have anyone, no one. So to those that are thinking, I got no one, I can relate to you. So I went to God. I said, God, I don't know how you're going to do this, but I'm just asking. Not expect. It's not about deserving. You know how bad I want this. And so I'm going to run again. And this time, I'm going to see if you can help me out. And if not, I'm going to run the next day and see if you can help me out. And if you can't, I'm going to run the next day. And I'm going to run it, and I'm going to run until December 31st of 95. I'm going to make sure that you are clear in your message in whatever direction you're going to go with me. But I'm not going to not do anything from here on out. I'm going to fight every day. So I went out, and as I'm running, I feel it right away. So I said, okay, what am I going to do about this? I'm still running. All the other times I stop. I go, no, I'm going to keep going. I feel it, and I'm going to keep going. I need to have faith to let you work with my doubts. I hadn't done that before. So I'm running, I'm limping, I'm out of shape. Biking and swimming, I was in biking and swimming shape, but there's a difference between those things and running. And then all of a sudden, this image of an angel came to me, an actual image. And the image was this angel grabbed my backbone, and it grabbed my pelvis. He grabbed my pelvis, and he put them together. And I don't know where that image came from, but as soon as I had that image, the pain went away. And I was freaking out because I'm like, okay, not going to ask questions. This is great. I love it. And every time the pain came, that image would come for future runs. And I couldn't do anything fast, so I learned within those limits. I couldn't do everything, but I could run slow. That's all I could do. I could run slow. So I ran slow longer and longer and longer. But I'm dying to know what I can do. I'm terrified to tell this to my parents, even as religious as they are. And I'm running now behind their back because while I was getting my student teaching degree, I was back home living with them. So I would get in my car, sneak my running clothes, and go drive someplace. I'm just hanging out with my friends. I had lied to my parents because I felt bad. I'm sorry, God, but I knew they wouldn't support me. They would be antagonistic about it. So then I'm doing these secret runs, and I have to do one race. I need to see what I can do because I'm going to have to do a race. So I did a 5K race. And that 5K race, without doing anything fast or long, I couldn't even go that long either. So no speed, no hills, no distance, just bare minimum running. I was shocked that I ran fast enough to get third place overall in this 5K race. I was shocked. So I'm like, okay, so based on my time, that time equates to a 3:10 exactly.
3 miles. You were calculating
the speed equates to 3:10.
to 26 miles. That's a big jump.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I know. I mean,
did you make it? I gotta know.
Okay.
Did you make it?
So I ran 6-minute pace for the 5K, and that equates to like a 6:50 pace for a marathon.
Yeah, for 23 more miles.
Okay. So I sign up. After that one, I said, okay, I'm going to sign up. So I started looking at all. I didn't want to even try to sign up because I needed to see if I could even do a 5K.
For which marathon? The Chicago Marathon?
No.
Which one?
No.
In order to qualify for Boston.
So I had up until December 31st of 1995. So on November 18th of 1995, I signed up for the Tulsa Marathon.
Ah, here it is.
Because in case Tulsa didn't work, I got more time after that. So I went with my two best friends at the time. Now by then they knew the story of the guardian angel. And they were like, dude, we're coming with you. We got to see this. My parents knew too. They were not happy. Even with the guardian angel story, they were very concerned. And they knew that I was going to go until I couldn't. This is me maxing out. Terrified to start the race. I go, I know you gave me this opportunity, so thank you. But one more favor. Please keep my back in place. My back stayed great.
Yeah.
The weather was great. It's a flat course. Two best friends there. I screwed up. I went out too fast. I go out way too fast. I'm so amped up. I go out too fast. And I'm way ahead of pace by about 8. And then by the halfway point, I'm starting to slow down. 14, 15, 16, 17. I'm slowing down. And I'm getting closer to my time. But it's not good because I'm slowing down. And it hurts so bad. I forget that there's different kinds of pain, and this is your arms are tired, your legs are tired, your lungs are tired, your mind is tired. My back was fine. So I feel like I look up, I said, God, you gave me opportunity, and I blew it. So thank you for the opportunity. At mile 25, so mile 24 to 25, I had run a 9:45 marathon. A 9:45 mile. And I needed to run a 6:40 final mile to qualify for Boston. That doesn't happen.
No.
Okay. So I looked up. I said, I'm at peace. You gave me the chance. I messed it up. I'm at peace. I was at peace with it. I really was. No crying. I was peace, just peaceful. Like you did everything you could. I was the one that messed it up.
Did you run a 6:40 mile at the end?
There was a guy limping ahead of me, and there's a volunteer that's helping him out. The volunteer looks back at me. So in my soul, he looks back and he says, if you pick it up, you can still qualify for Boston. I felt this electricity run through my body. I ran 6:40 pace.
No, you did not.
I don't know who this guy was.
Oh, man.
But as soon as he said that, electricity ran through me, and I qualified by 20 seconds. And I went back. My first thing was, well, after I raced, my friend has a picture of me. As soon as I cross the line, I fall. I'm done. I'm out of energy. Boom. And they pick me up, dragging me, and I'm exploding. And then as soon as I come to, I go, you got to come with me. We got to find this volunteer. I don't know who he is. I need to know who he is. Yeah. We couldn't find him. I found the guy who the volunteer was helping. What happened to the volunteer that was with you? He goes, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
I was just limping.
Yeah.
He said there was no one there. I saw that person, and that person said that to me at that time, in that moment, when I was at peace with everything. And then I was given energy that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So if anybody needs a Doubting Thomas story, there you go. Because I felt like, okay, given the special treatment that I was chosen, I was blessed to receive, I have no excuse for the rest of my life, no matter how bad my life gets, to question God and his motives other than to say thank you with the biggest thank you ever. And so I guess the message to me for anyone out there is when everything else fails and you don't have anyone that you can rely on, you don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with it, is to have faith. Have faith that it's not about your terms, it's about God's terms. And often they're a lot harder than our terms, a lot longer. And you just got to stick it out, and you got to figure out a way. So if that means that way can be go for a walk, I think going outside of yourself, literally going outside of your house. I do this a lot, especially during the pandemic. When they told us to, isolate, I go, I can't. I feel like a caged animal. So I'd go outside, and I started my streak. I had never been a streaker before. It sounds funny. A streaker is somebody who runs every day, a run streaker.
Okay.
So I decided, because the pandemic said we can't go outside, I'm like, I'm going outside. Or we can't go anywhere, like shopping or whatever. I didn't. I followed those rules. But I went outside, and I communed with God's creation in nature. I looked for the most scenic spots to run. And sometimes I didn't feel like running the whole time, so I would run to get my 1 mile minimum, and then I'd walk the rest of the time. Or I'd start with a walk and then run. And it was mostly just keeping my the perspective of the bigger picture rather than my own tiny little picture. And I feel like those of us that are stuck in our tiny little picture will never get better until we expand our horizons. And a very simple, free way to do that is go outside in your porch, or get in your car and drive somewhere, or do something to get outside of your environment. Because if you do that, it changes your literal viewpoints, which then changes your perspectives. And then when you go back, it's almost like a cycle here. So you build up your stress when you go back to your environment, but you got to find a way to release that stress so you don't get overwhelmed with the stress. And then you fill back up. So it's like a 24-hour cycle of build, release, build, release. And for me, it's running. It might be walking, yoga. It might be having a conversation with somebody. It might be doing nothing other than they drive to a bench on a lake and look at the ducks and say, look, the ducks aren't stressed. So ducks are having it okay. And what's nice about that versus social media is this is real. You go outside, this is reality. Social media, it's all polished. It's a production. And that's also important too. So even if you're in the middle of the inner city and you can't get out because it's dangerous, then yeah, maybe Google nature, Google relaxing sounds. And the only other thing that I would say is either pray, so you don't have to go anywhere for that, or meditate. And I did both. I needed to do the breathing exercises to calm my monkey brain. They call it the monkey brain. And then it put me in a mood to then pray. So what I did was so I went through a divorce 6 years ago, and so to get to the divorce, I'd sit in my little rocker chair that I used to rock my kids in. I would rock myself. I was comforting myself. I comforted my kids all these years. Now it's my turn. So I'd rock, and I'd take the breaths, and sometimes it would take a really long time because the thoughts were still circulating in my head, and I would say, go back to the breath, 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 and then I'd get in a rhythm, and then I'm like, okay, God, I think I'm ready to have a heart-to-heart talk with you about what is going on and what do I need to do with my kids and what do I need to do right here, right now. But by then, I know divorce is really hard on a lot of people, but I feel like God prepared me with all the other things leading up to that time. And my faith, again, I don't know who that guardian angel was, but I got no excuse. I was given special revelation, so I feel like I'm honored to have experienced that. And even in one of my real weak moments, the most proud thing I've ever done was a day after my wife told me she was leaving me. I thought I was by myself. So I was on the floor in a fetal position, just crying. I mean, the loss. What am I going to do? The shame, the humiliation. I didn't know that she was coming back to get her stuff still. I didn't know that she had come in, unbeknownst to my wailing and fetal position crying. She was just stoically staring at me, cold, looking over me. And I said the best thing I ever said. I looked up at her and I got so defiant so quick. I said, I might be battered. I might be bleeding. I might be bruised. But I can promise you right here, right now, I will come back better than ever. Better than ever. And I said that at my weakest moment in my whole life. I said those words to my ex. And that was my mission after that. So I said, okay, figure it out now. What are you going to do about that? How are you going to make that happen? How are you going to earn the right? So now I've met the woman of my dreams, and my kids have lived with me, and they're doing great. And yes, that was a chapter of my life that was part of who I am today, but this is a new chapter, and I have a new day, and the sun rises again, and God gives me another opportunity to be the best version of myself with all the good and with all the bad and with all the in-between.
That was awesome. That was absolutely amazing. I think that's a really kind of good way to send it off. Good with the good with the bad, and good with all the in-between. That's not a bad way to send it off. Any last little tidbits? Not coach?
No, I thank you for the opportunity to do this. I was actually really nervous about when you're reflecting on yourself. It's tough because we're our own worst critics. But I feel like you said before the interview started, just kind of let the Spirit lead you. And I feel like the Spirit led me. So hopefully I did that.
Yeah, absolutely. Eladio, thanks for being here. Freedom Story is about overcoming, right? And then taking that story of overcoming and then going and being an influence. And you've done that, obviously, to hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands. And it's really, really neat. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you.